Okay, let's take a deep dive into for in loops. Now, everyone knows for in loops allows you to loop through objects and its keys, but it's actually a lot deeper than that. Now, in the next video, we're going to talk about the for of loop, but for now, we're going to stay on for in. So, for in loop loops through an objects and its prototypes, enumerable key names. If it's not enumerable, you're not going to see it in a for in loop. So with this code right here, I have an object and an array, and I do a for in loop in both of them. Let's see what we get. For the object, the for in loop works, right? It gave us all the keys, name, job, greet. For the array, it also works, giving us the keys 0, 1, and 2. So why does it work on arrays? Well, arrays are actually just a special type of object. So our current array, its 0th index is null. And its first index is a string, hello. Okay. And since it's an object, this key value pair has the property name enumerable equals true. So therefore, a for in loop works. Okay. Now, what if we do obj and let's access its prototype, and then let's add a property called save food, and I'll set it to pizza. Now, you see that the for in actually displayed it. And also this for in actually displayed it too. Okay. Now, that's because for in loops also checks its prototypes. But here's a question. How come we don't see methods like dot constructor or dot toString? We all know that every object has that method, right? Well, that's because those methods are built in and they're set to enumerable equals false. Okay, how can we take a look at something like that? So let me delete all of this. Now we can do something like const test is equal to object dot get property descriptor. Okay. Now this takes in 3 arguments. 1, the object we're looping through. 2, the property name we want to look at. Let's look at teach job right now. Okay. So, and then we're going to console.log test. And then only by using object.getOwnProperty descriptor can you see the 4 descriptors that every object key has. Okay. So right now, the value is teacher that we know, and its 3 descriptors are true. Okay. Writable means you can change the value. Enumerable means you can use a for loop. That's the only thing it means. There's no deeper meaning. Configurable means you can use the delete operator on it, which we should never do anyways. Okay, now, can we change our enumerable to false? Well, yeah, we can. So let's see how we can do that. So now we can do something like object.define property. Takes in the same 3 arguments, the object, the key name that you want to look at, in this case, job, and the third one is an object where you can define your descriptor property. So right now, I'm going to put enumerable will now be false. Okay. And now, if we do a for in loop again, let's see, console.log key, let's see what we get. So we get name and we get greet, but we do not get job because it is now not enumerable. So it doesn't display in a for in loop. Cool, right? Now, let's do another example. We all know the array constructor, right? So let's do a for in loop through the array constructor dot prototype. So for const key in array dot prototype console.log key. Do we see anything here? We don't, okay? Because all of its methods that we know and love, all of these are enumerable false. Let's actually check that, and then let's change one of them. So object dot define property, and then I'm going to copy array dot prototype. And what property? Let's look at the filter method. Okay, and then here I'm going to do enumerable is now true. See, So now when you do a for in loop, even if you do a for in loop in a regular array, right, you still see the filter key name, because a regular array's prototype is array.prototype. And the for in loop checks all the prototypes of whatever you put here. Cool, right? Okay, let's move on. Okay, let's talk a bit more about how those property descriptors are affected by the way you create your objects. If you use an object literal, all of those properties, if we use get on property descriptors, all the descriptors will be true for all properties. And then as we said, using define property, they're all set to false. Okay? But let's take a look at class. What about class person? And then I'll just say name is equal to Philip. But then I have a method. Let's just call this say hi. Then return blah, blah, blah. Okay, and then I'm going to do const fill is equal to new person. And then console.log fill. Okay, so we have this. Now, if we do a for in loop on fill, let's see what happens. For key in fill, console.log key. Okay, we see name, but we don't see the say hi. Okay, if we type fill, okay, where does the say hi live? The say hi lives on the prototype, as expected when we define it inside of a class. But normally, for in will also display all prototypes, right? But this is the case with only class definitions. All methods defined inside of a class will have enumerable set to false. Okay? All methods defined or declared inside an object literal has enumerable set to true. So if we change key in fill to key in obj, we're actually going to see the key greet, okay? But not in class definitions. So just something to keep in mind, okay? Okay, so we know that it will loop through anything with enumerable, and our objects have keys with that property, either true or false. And then I said everything's an object. How can we prove this? Let's do a function definition. Then let's call this really an object, I guess. And then I'll just return like 10 or something. Okay, so now we can prove that this is an object, because in JavaScript, all objects, you can add to or get the properties and methods with either square brackets or dot brackets. What if I do, I'm really an object, dot age is 10, and then I'm really an object, oops, and then add specialty, and then this will be equal to a function that would just return type of this. Okay, and then I'm going to console.log, I'm really an object. So let's look on the right. Okay, we see that it's a function definition, but we don't see any of these properties or methods. But if you do, I'm really an object, whoops, and then you do dot age, see, we actually access it. What about dot specialty? It actually returns function, right? So we added a function as a method of another function. And that's because a function is really just an object, a special object that has the call, bind, and apply method. Okay, let's talk about for in loops. What if, oops, I changed the name. Let's do I'm really an object. Now, when we do this, we see age and specialty, okay? Because this is an object, so it has keys. And since we created those keys using object literal, okay, now using the dot notation and square brackets is the same as defining it in an object literal. And because of that, enumerable is now true. Therefore, we can do a for in loop through it. Cool, right?